What were you just teaching me about mouth breathing and how it changes the shape of the face?
Now, so I arrived carrying a copy of the book Jaws, A Hidden Epidemic. This is not Jaws the shark. This book centers around a couple of core concepts, but the first being that people, and in particular children, who overuse mouth breathing as opposed to nasal breathing, have changes in the structure of the face that, well, to be quite direct, makes them far more unattractive than if they were to mouth breathe. It also discusses the chewing of foods as essential to mouth and face development. Sandra Kahn is an expert in craniofacial function and structure. And the fact that if your parents and you did things right, you should be able to place your entire tongue on the roof of your mouth with your mouth closed. Now, I can't do that. Okay. So when you with teeth closed, tongue on the roof of your mouth, I can, but I still feel the back of my teeth a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the second point, that we want to chew hard. Chewing foods is essential to tooth and mouth and face development. These days, many children slurp their food. Many adults slurp their foods. Many adults are eating like babies. And of course, babies, before they develop their mature teeth, and even before they get all of their teeth in, need to obviously breast milk and, pudding-like foods. Okay. So that's the second point. So nasal breathing, good. Mouth breathing, bad for craniofacial development. Chewing hard foods, chewing a lot on both sides of the mouth, great for craniofacial development, oral development, tooth development, and tooth health, which, by the way, are correlated with a number of other things like cardiovascular health and metabolic health. Very, very interesting links there. And then the third point is that the book argues that the entire field of orthodontia, things like braces, things like headgear, things like retainers, are the byproduct of poor breathing and, let's just say, overconsumption of soft foods in place of hard foods behavior. And so there's this guy who's from your side of the pond, Mew.
I like him already.
About the Mew method of restoring normal craniofacial development. The book is chock-a-block full of impressive photos of before and afters. Impressive because in some cases you'll see kids that were mouth breathers or were eating a lot of soft foods, and then they recovered their behavior, so to speak, and became nose breathers. Of course, we have to mouth breathe when we're exercising really hard, or when we're eating or speaking, we're going to mouth breathe. But at rest, we should nasal breathe, is the argument. And that greatly improves craniofacial aesthetics. And the good news is this stuff is modifiable across the lifespan. And so the book isn't arguing for anyone to purchase anything. You don't need a Jaws-sizer. I'm saying that explicitly because they took clips of me talking about this and productized it, and I had nothing to do with that. So hopefully you'll keep this in the episode. And they even admitted they were breaking the law, and he said, "We don't care. We're going to continue to do it." So
sales are sales, man.
Yeah, but now those to the credit of products for exercising the jaw, sure, there are muscles of the jaw that can
what you're talking
change
about
the
is
aesthetic, but using food to do that.
Eat tough food is, if you don't have a sufficiently tough diet, I guess you could replace it. But explain to me the mechanics of how the difference in whether you breathe through your nose or breathe through your mouth changes the shape of your face and head. Yeah, well, and it goes beyond that. If you breathe through your mouth as opposed to your nose, first of all, you bring in less oxygen than you would if. So you're effectively putting yourself into a state of apnea, right? Which is bad during sleep. And guess what? It's bad during waking states also. You're getting less oxygen to your brain, bad. The sinuses, we hear my sinuses are clogged, or the sinuses, wish I had brought a skull with me, because one of the most impressive things about a skull, human skull being no exception, is that the sinuses are literally these little tubes or channels through which fluid and air can move. And the sinuses, even though they are essentially created by the fissures between different bones, so like there's two or three different bones that are interdigitated and create these tunnels, they're actually fairly plastic in the sense that they can be modified in terms of their shape. And so people will say, well, I have a deviated septum. Guess what? You should try and emphasize breathing through both nostrils in order to undeviate your septum. Now, if someone has a broken nose or something that's really structurally abnormal, they may need corrective surgery. But
purely through deliberate nasal breathing. So it could be mouth taping at night, but also just deliberately nasal breathing during most of your cardiovascular training, unless you need to really, hit the gas, in which case you mouth breathe, is going to help dilate the sinuses and lead to better airflow, which makes nasal breathing easier. The other thing is that nasal breathing, we know, well, first of all, there's a nasal microbiome. There's also an oral microbiome, but the nasal microbiome is particularly well suited to scrub or capture and destroy viruses, bacteria, and even some fungal infections. So in other words, when you're breathing in through your mouth, you're more susceptible to infections. This is important heading into winter as well. So there are a number of, we could talk about this for hours, but the point is nasal breathe when you can. Kids especially, but adults as well, chewing foods that require, eating foods that require some chewing and really working at it and chewing away. They have some impressive images in this book of kids that were twins that were raised separately, one by a group that eats a lot of let's just say tougher foods that require chewing versus one that's slurping their food. And one kid is literally incredibly attractive, perfect dentiture with no orthodontia or regular dentistry. And the other kid the teeth is like snaggled. Wow. They have the horsey smile.
Even though they've got the same genetic predisposition.
Right. It's not a perfect experiment because there are other factors as well. And, none of this is, for better or worse, none of this is really amenable to kind of in laboratory type stuff. So these are naturally occurring experiments, as we say. There are also some very impressive images in the book, or we could say depressing, of kids that were pretty attractive as kids. And then there's an example of a kid who got a pet hamster. He was allergic to the hamster. He switched, as a consequence, he becomes a mouth breather. And then the characteristic change in the face when one overdoes mouth breathing is that the chin starts to move
recesses,
toward the neck. And the rest of the face goes out, but also the eyes become droopy. But as you say, why would the eyes be affected? It's not just musculature. What's happening is there's less use of literally the sinuses in the towards the upper mandible and up towards the eyes. Because if you ever had a sinus infection, it's painful up here in your forehead and around the eyes. So again, it's pretty straightforward. No products required. Chew your food well. Chew on both sides of your mouth, especially if you're a young person. But even if you're not, be a nasal breather. Really chew at your food. Try and this probably also has benefits in terms of limiting unessential or low nutrient density calories. Slurping your food all the time. I love
don't drink your calories, man.
Yeah, I love a good Greek yogurt. But drinking in excess of calories is probably not good. And eat like an adult. I always say, one of the things is I don't know. Like to me, growing up, snack food was something that kids indulged in. Once you hit 18 or so, eat like an adult.
I'm still waiting to learn that lesson.